who is your favourite author?
My favourite author would be Posh.
Well, I mean, I'm going to assume I thought you were going to say me, but your favourite children's author would be...
No, I'd still
Posh?
say Posh, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, this episode we have Yvette Poshoglian, one of the most eminent children's authors in Australia.
My kids love her.
Oh, the Ella and Olivia series. 50-something books.
Puppy
It's
Diaries
nuts.
too.
Yeah. Dear Greta, I think, is the latest book out.
Yep.
Look, we're going to be talking with her. She's a former English teacher and obviously a passionate author. We're going to be talking about literacy. We're going to be talking about
Creativity.
writing. She's huge on creativity. I can't wait to get started. Let's
Looking
dive
forward
in.
to it.
All right, let me just bring this HyperX microphone nice and close to me, and we are going to kick off for a new episode. Rob, the Ella and Olivia series, book series, children's books. Do you have any copies at home?
As a father of 3 daughters, I have almost all of them, I can tell you.
You, of course, know who the author of the Ella and Olivia series is.
And I'm a huge fan, absolutely. It is
Yvette
Yvette Poshoglian.
Oh, thank you guys. Very exciting to be here. Can we call this work? I feel like I'm here with buddies. This is great.
This is work, work, play, fun,
Great.
all the same thing.
Great.
If you enjoy what you do, you never work a day, I believe
This
is
is
the
true.
phrase.
This is true.
Now, I'm so excited to have you on our podcast here today. Now, that English teacher background, working with the department, prolific children's author. How many books?
I have
2,
a problem.
3, 4?
I have a problem, Brett.
You have a problem?
Why write one book when you can have a 30-book series?
30-book series plus the others, about 50, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories out there, and there's still so many more. I just don't have time to put them all down on paper or on the computer. I just do not have the time, but I've got thousands of ideas.
Wow.
So it's about harnessing them. I mean, I don't need to tell both of you that. You're in exactly the same position as me.
Too many ideas.
Too many ideas.
Too many ideas,
Too
but
little
not
time.
50 books.
Not 50 books, I tell you, you've got runs on the board.
Thank
I
you.
can see your one of your latest books
I know,
right at the
it's
front
such
of
a
it.
gorgeous
Do you want
cover
to tell us a
too.
little bit about
Yeah,
Dear Greta?
Yeah, Dear Greta. So my Ella and Olivia books are for ages 5 to 7. They're beginning chapter books. It's been nice to sort of flex my muscles again with a slightly older age group. And to be perfectly honest, I think I peaked in year 6. So my character in here is in year 6 because I look back on that time as such a fun time. I think the main character is 11. I think it's a really interesting age. You're finding out a lot about yourself. My character, Alice, in the book is finding her way in the world against a backdrop of a lot of change. We've just seen kids go through huge changes in their lives. I actually feel kids have dealt with it a lot better than most adults that I know with everything that's been happening,
Kids are resilient.
whether it's climate change, whether it's learning from home, whatever situation we've put them into, I find that they're quite able to adapt. Now, I say that as a cursory overview, but I know that, that many adults have had, and me too, I found that really tough in the last couple of years. Writing, as you know, Brett and Rob, it's a solitary pursuit. It was a hard thing to do during lockdown on top of everything else. So this book is a real piece of its time. It was written and forged in fire, I think, literally. It started at the beginning of the bushfires, and it tackles a lot of those ideas. And also, what do we do when kids need to have a voice and maybe reach out to someone who they might not know? Because let's face it, kids can literally reach out to any figure that they know, whether it's a Greta Thunberg or anyone else that they look up to. You can reach out now and make contact. So what happens if you take that idea further? That's the story in this book.
You love to think of things a little bit differently. I know you're a creative. I know you go outside the box. The format of this book is original in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it nearly killed me, Brett. It nearly killed me. Don't ever write an email, a book in email form, because it will challenge you in ways that you don't need to be challenged. Look, it seemed it seemed like a great idea at the time. Bringing it to fruition.
So just to clarify, like
the whole novel is written in emails,
entire novel, and it is thick,
and it's
it is all email format.
Yeah, so essentially, I really wanted to model what students do. This book is a portfolio writing project by the main character. What she does, instead of just saving it to her folder on her desktop or on her cloud file, she actually ends up sending the emails to Greta Thunberg as she's writing them, because she's like, what's the point? I'm writing a project and I'm not doing anything with it. It's just going into the void. So this is about taking that next step of action. Hey, I'm going to look up Greta's email address. I'm going to send her these emails. Whether she reads them or not, in the end, it actually is a bit of a journey of discovery. So that's the whole premise behind it. But yeah, as a literary device, it's a challenge that I don't recommend.
Look, I've got to say to you, and I think you might know this, but in my little book here, A Mammoth Lesson, I actually have a short chapter on Greta as well.
Amazing.
The meta of Greta. Now, this book here, I've got a nice little inscription inside.
Oh my God.
This is for you.
Thank you so much. But tell me, Brett, were you inspired? Are you inspired if you've got a chapter in here about Greta? What does she mean to you?
Well, I was going to say, in this book, so the Mammoth Lesson is all about, well, what lessons, this whole podcast is Reinvent the Classroom. What can we do differently? How do we need to think differently about education to best prepare our students for the future that they're going to enter? And that's what the Mammoth Lesson actually is. It's this reflection of what is it that we need to do to think differently to best prepare our students for the world in which they enter, in this case the digital age. But the chapter I've got is the meta of Greta. Like the conversation I have with Greta in my book is all about Greta Thunberg got cut through in a very noisy space. Forget your political view of her. Put that to the side. How does such a young teen be able to get cut through in such a very, very noisy space? How can we amplify student voice? How can we learn from what Greta has done and then embed that in our teaching practices, in our schools, in our system, so students learn their passions, learn from her, hence the meta of Greta. Sorry, Rob, go.
Student voice doesn't mean we need to put every single one of our students on the world stage. But I can tell from Dear Greta, for instance, just that ability to have that creative channel for Alice in the book
What's an
is
inner
huge.
voice too? It's not just the loud. It's not how loud can you yell and make people listen to you, but your inner voice, understanding what your passion, your thought, your process, what you understand the world to be, right?
Yeah, and somehow getting that into the world and having somebody listen.
I think it's about authenticity. She didn't try hard to be anything apart from what she felt strongly about, and her words were simple pen strokes on a placard, and that was how she wanted to communicate with the world. I mean, the fact that it amplified to the way that it did is testament to the belief she had in herself and her voice, and the fact that we've been able to see a generation of young people now taking that. I think they're doing it in different ways. That was Greta 4 years ago, 5 years ago. She's only just turned 18. I mean, she's still only a teenager, yet the whole landscape of digital communication has already changed. So I think, the more I talk to students and we use that as a bit of hook when we're talking about writing and talking about writing to our heroes, it's really about that space, that liminal space between you as a writer and you as a young person, or you as an activist, or whoever you are and however you want to identify with that person in power or authority is actually really small these days. It's just about how do we continue to empower the young people, because really I don't think it's even about those people on the pedestal. It's actually about giving the power to the young voices to make sure they have all those tools. And that's why, as an English teacher, I always say it's really important. You need to have the correct skills to. You can get behind a podcast mic any day of the week, but unless you can fully articulate what you're going to say, there's absolutely no point.
How can we help our students to better articulate what they have in their own soul and their mind, in a way that people are going to want to listen to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where the role of teachers is so crucial. I mean, you only have to look at a kindergarten student that gets their foundational reading skills from day one of term one, where they come in and they are just unfully formed creatures, right through to you see them at the end of that first year of teaching. They're already different beings. They can already read, they can write, they can communicate. I think that the power is in the hands of our teachers to continue those really crucial literacy skills. I mean, on top of that, you need wide reading skills. I mean, that's my biggest, I guess, voice piece that I'm always trying to put across is that I think the wide reading helps you, whatever form you're reading in. It doesn't have to be fiction, non-fiction, the way you consume messaging. It's all important.
Reading things that you disagree with?
I think that there's a role for that in a high school and older years, and understanding and being, literate around news. I think that's going to play a bigger part in that. I think what's important are at the crucial stages are foundational literacy skills, and I think that's the crux of it. yes, they can be good media consumers and understand that, but I think in order to do that, you need to have a good general knowledge as well in order to form those opinions of the world. So I don't know, I'm just putting back into the hands of our teachers and our parents and our carers and our community to bring the next generation along. So that's all I ask, a small ask.
Well, you've got to start by having a solid foundation, right?
That's
the
it,
whole learning to read and then learning from reading. It's that flip as they get older, that develop that critical thinking, develop that analytical mindset. That's important, and to be able to dissect something. But you have to have those fundamentals. And we talk about play and love and passion and find your own voice. But you've got to do that from a wholesome place to begin with. You've got to be exposed to all these amazing stories, and then you can, as you get older, bring in that critical element.
The thing that I'm really passionate is bringing about the next generation of creators. For me, I look at the structures around writing, publishing, and you would know this, both of you, are very traditional. We still live in a very traditional form, unless you're a groundbreaking disruptor that just goes in at the side and changes it up. You've got a best-selling book here.
I understand the hypocrisy of writing a book about teaching in the digital age on paper.
Can I ask you guys, are you guys ebook consumers or hard copy consumers, or both?
Hard copy. I need to taste it and smell it. And
okay.
It's very...
It's
ASMR,
very...
it's...
It's a tactile thing, right?
Yeah.
I have a digital library. I use some books for that purpose, but I'm a 100%... We're still in this phase anyway with our traditional forms of publishing. I do think that will change. I think it's our the industry, particularly the children's book industry is still very much a hard copy industry, and it's starting to change. But by and large, children read hard copies in schools.
Developmental psychology, that concrete operational, that physical, that tactile development of childhood, where we need to actually move and touch.
And I think children's books are still the most beautiful books out there. Some of those picture books that I'm seeing out at the moment from Australian creators are superb, and using colour palettes that I actually don't think have been used before. I'm talking high vis colours. There's a really interesting movement now. But
we've talked about before, you and I, illustrators. They're doing such an amazing job.
They're incredible.
Are they really supported though?
Look, are any artists really supported?
Yeah.
This is the question. I think there's some change afoot. I think it's a very interesting space to be in as a writer, and many people wouldn't even call us that anymore. They call us content creators. I struggle with that. I still think there's room to be called a fiction writer or producing linear narratives, but then again, is that all there is? I don't believe that either. I just think the modes of publishing are changing, and I really am excited about what opportunities that gives, not just for me, but for the next generation of students that I'm working with, to make sure they can be the storytellers of their generation. Because if we don't do that now, we are not going to see any fruits of our labour in the form of stories being published in 5 years, 10 years. We're not going to have the next stories of Australia. And that to me is a real problem, and that's something I'm really passionate about.
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go with my next question, with this whole concept of reinventing the classroom and actually using technology and re-looking at the way our education system runs, and what can we do pedagogically different to get more impact and get outcomes for students. How do we do that, but through a lens of creativity? How do we reinvent? How do we re-look? How do we pedagogically support the creativity within our classrooms?
Yeah, oh gosh, that's just a small question to throw out.
How
are we going to revolutionise the world?
Before this podcast runs out?
Yeah, look, I can speak from an English teacher perspective because that's my training and my teaching, but my as an English teacher coming into the world of digital and technology, I was, I am a convert. I think that technology offers us a way to understand the English context, to understand texts, to reinvent texts. I think there's incredible opportunity, and you know what? It's led by students. I think teachers learn every day from their students. Our students write more than what we probably did as kids, and we were probably those kids that wrote a lot. Diary entries, whatever, reports that we were writing. I mean, I just invented my own whole life as a child on the page. But if you think about it, kids today, they're messaging each other all the time. Even if it's 3 emojis that tell a story, I'm sorry, that is still a different way of thinking to be supported and encouraged. They're already streets ahead of us. So I think we, as much as we can inform ourselves by how we deliver the lessons or how we teach and how we engender that creativity, as much of it's going to come from them, because they see things differently to us, and I think there's a lot to learn from them.
You mentioned that publishing is changing and there's more opportunities now. I've got 3 young girls who love writing. How can their dad help them to do something with that and foster that creativity?
I think so much about the publishing process. Let's be honest. It's an ego thing. I want to see my name on the cover of a book. Am I right?
Oh, massive ego. I own my ego.
That is part of the whole deal.
It's not a dirty word.
Skyhook's
reference.
That's got it. I think the power of writing comes from seeing your work in a format that's accessible by other readers. And as a writer who the reason I write is because I want people to enjoy my stories. I am not about being in a cave, writing for the love of language. Yes, that is a part of why I love writing, and there's things that I write for myself, and that's great, but ultimately my narratives are for young people to enjoy. So I think there's never been a better time, Rob, as we know, to self-publish, to digitally publish, to share works in different ways, in different files. There's a lot of EPUB formats out there. I think there are beautiful templates that can get kids started. All of those things are fantastic stepping stones to actualization for a project. I think the biggest, not roadblock, but I think, as with anybody who's been through the publishing process, is the benefit of your teacher, your critic, your editor. And I am a better writer because I've had a lot of editing support. And even with Dear Greta, half of that book belongs to my editor, who really, strengthened my writing, structural edits, line edits, copy edits, all of those things are part of the process. And for instance, when we get to stage 6 English and we're looking at the craft of writing, if you don't have that background of revision, writing, rewriting, drafting to final product, it's just that old marathon analogy. Like, if you can't train for a marathon, you're not going to get over the finish line at 42 Ks. You need to be in training, and that's all it is. So as much as I'm excited by digital publishing and what that allows, and I'm all for it, I think there are those key skills that kids work on and refine in the background with their teachers and their parents or their readers or whoever they're working with to refine their storytelling. Ideas are good, refined ideas are better, distilled ideas are the ones that get the cut through.
Certainly on Twitter.
I'm still rubbish at Twitter.
In a classroom level, that's the challenge.
Yes,
right?
this is true. Sorry, I didn't answer that question.
Can I give an example of why?
Yeah.
Novembers were always crazy when I was teaching stage 3, because I would do NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month.
Oh gosh, yes.
And it was fantastic. I had students who wrote up to almost 50,000 words, over 40,000 words in a month. And because we were totally focused on word count, which is fantastic, because it's about getting the ideas out.
It drives the word count.
Yeah.
And it stops you from the self-editing process.
Yeah, which is something that we all have to learn. And it's something that I think actually stifles students, that they don't separate, and they're not taught often to separate out the writing and the editing.
Wait. Are you saying there's more to writing than the NAPLAN time limit on what you can write? Are you...
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's just revolutionary thoughts there, Rob.
Don't start me down that road. But at the end of it, I had only a handful of students that were ready to take it to the next step. I think they valued what they'd done so much that they wanted to publish it. And I'd get them all to do illustrations for their books, and we'd turn them all into ebooks, because that's easy. But there were some that, and it was usually just a handful, maybe 3, that wanted to actually turn it into a physical book. And part of that was great because I think they had a deal with Amazon or something at the time when they got 5 or 6 books for their family.
Yeah, great.
But that process of helping them to edit, to actually put it into a style that makes sense for, the right size for a book, put all their illustration. That was huge, and that was a lot of time for me as the teacher.
Yes.
I could never have done that for 30 students. So I just wanted to give a bit of a practical example of we can't always give them exactly what they want if you want to get your students to the point of publishing.
Yes. No, I mean, I think the scaffolding is there. I think seeing the final product is also half of it. I've just had the chance to interview an incredible 12-year-old. Her name's Abby. She basically is running an empire now. Her way.
I'm a big Abby fan.
Abby Mania, let me tell you.
She you've got to unpack what her
absolutely
way is,
amazing. So Abby, who's just finished year 6,
$10,000. I think
she's raised $10,000. She has a partnership. Okay, Abby's backstory: passionate about sport, women's sport, profiling women's sportswomen, in fact, one might say, and basically celebrating women's sport in Australia. She did this. It all stemmed out. She just had a little podcast. Actually, she has a little mic that she attaches to her phone, which, because I asked her how she went, she basically ambushed people as they were coming off the sidelines. Netballers, basketballers, you name it. Obviously, her parents are very busy people, supporting Abby with this.
She's an Australian Greta.
She's absolutely amazing. Created her own magazine, essentially, produced it online, very simple creation.
$2.
I subscribe.
$1 goes to
UNICEF women's cricket in developing countries like Sri Lanka. I mean, as a cricket tragic, I love this kid. I'm a sports nut. I love this kid. I love everything she's doing. She also she's actually changing tack with her magazine. She actually started out as a junior reporter at the Australian Open last year, which is where it all kicked off, I believe. But she's a cool kid. She's heading into high school. I think her movement is changing slightly, but she's got an incredible Twitter presence. She's on all over social media.
Her vocabulary
but get this, Brett, she also illustrates her own profile pics of her favourite athletes. I mean, the kid's got it all. I've asked her for a job. I mean, let's put it that way. I want to be on board her way.
She's one of the,
she's incredible.
She's someone that we, when we're much older teachers and we're talking again, she's someone that we go, this lady is going to be hugely influential in the Australian landscape in whatever direction.
She's
with
fabulous.
The drive and passion that she has, whatever direction that she chooses to put her energies in, she will be the captain of that industry.
From what you're telling us, it sounds like she's being quite explorative with it. So she's not just focusing in on one thing.
Yeah, and her magazine is all in her voice. It's not. From what I can read, from a teacher perspective, it's written entirely in her voice, from her perspective as a 12-year-old, then 11-year-old. Her take or her hot takes on sport and opinion pieces as well as information pieces. So she's covering a huge range of writing styles, and then she's also doing the short takes required for social media. So her skills are already out there, and she's made it all herself using a digital magazine template. And I think that the more we see these kinds of creators out there,
she's a perfect role model
fantastic.
For what we want. When we talk about creativity and having students find their voice, and we were talking about that, what is that those meta traits, that meta of Greta there? What are those things that let you have that authentic voice, understand what your story is, and then channel that story and beat the noise and put your idea, your thoughts, into the and.
Even if it's script writing and creating a podcast, even if you're creating intro music. I mean, that was one of my passions as a kid, making my own news reports. I had a little mixer with sound effects. I reported from war zones. I made my own theme music. It was all in my head. But it was a precursor to podcasting, guys. It was absolutely my jam. But all those things, I used to write my own news reports. I mean, these are the things that we already see kids doing, creating their own school podcasts, for instance.
Posh, is that because you are just a creative person? You were born that way? I
had outlets all over the place.
So is it, you're born creative and you either have it or you don't?
Nature or nurture?
Oh, God, Rob, that's a difficult question. I think it's in everybody. I think it's whether or not it's nurtured or whether it's allowed to flourish.
I think I really like the term creative confidence. It comes out of design thinking, and I like the idea that we can encourage it by encouraging the confidence of students to actually, if you have a love for something, do something with it, create something. And to do that, you need to be courageous, and courage doesn't happen without
Absolutely.
fear as a precursor. So being fearful, great, you're at the first step. Fantastic, you started. How do you get through that and make something?
You need the chutzpah to be able to look at your own work and go,
Chutzpah.
I've written it down. I'm not going to delete it. It might be a piece of garbage, but I'm going to deal with this because it's on the page now and I'm going to write the second line. And that's the thing that, working with young writers, it's always just about getting those thoughts down. If you can get into that flow state like you've got them for NaNoWriMo, that's an amazing place to be. But it's, I often speak to other writers who do the morning pages, the journal pages. I think I did that for one day of my life, and then I thought, no, I'm going to go back to sleep. The 20 minutes is more valuable to me asleep than it is writing my conscious flow state, But when I think...
Same happened with the gym, by the way.
Tell me about it. I think it's there in everyone. It's just about how you harness it or unlock it or encourage it. It's great to start. There's a lot of people out there who start projects, a lot of kids out there who start and then get discouraged. It's about trying to make sure that barrier gets broken down a little bit.
Now, I was going to say, you were talking about your childhood. I want to ask childhood Posh a question.
Yeah.
It's a question that I put on Twitter about once a year.
As I said to you, I peaked in year 6. I'm ready for this.
Peaked in year 6. I want you to channel year 6 Posh. Dinosaur, what is your favourite dinosaur?
I did say instinctively Triceratops yesterday, but I have spent a lot of time researching megafauna.
Right.
And I think it's the mastodon, which is the giant wombat, big favourite of mine.
Oh,
so there's many...
Very Australian of you.
Yeah, no, passionate Australian storyteller.
I don't know,
it's not quite prehistoric, but I'm going to just say that's my
but
chosen animal.
A dinosaur wombat?
They were mega.
Dinosaur. It's not a dinosaur. I need to take you
Mega.
down to the Australian Museum. Yeah, megafauna.
Megafauna.
There were
They were
big
giant.
animals in Australia. They're
Yeah,
about the size of this. The big wombat would be about the size of this studio. Huge.
I know.
What does that tell me about you? Like, why does Posh? If I'm going to get some insights into your personality with a love of megafauna,
goodness.
What is it?
I think
What can peel
megafauna
away?
are-
What's the onion layer there?
Megafauna are fascinating. The more I think you scratch the surface with natural science, particularly because I'm interested in science, the more there is to discover. And Australia is such a unique place. It's such a unique place. I mean, we've had these discussions about goodness knows what's already going on down in Tassie. I mean, we have such a unique setting for flora and fauna. I don't know, but every time I go there, I'm convinced that there's creatures there that are still alive.
Please tell me. I'm
But
in your camp.
No.
I want to believe
No,
in
I mean,
cryptids.
look,
I want to believe in
without
cryptids.
going into silliness, I
Tasmanian tigers are there.
did you read that they found the last thylacine coats locked up in a cupboard in the Tasmanian Museum? They'd lost them for like 50 years, and they found them in the educator's cupboard. I was like, that's a perfect.
Yeah,
Someone
I've
say.
seen those covers in my old school.
Yeah, there's God knows what else is in those cupboards down there, but I thought that was quite funny.
I reckon that's a great way to end our podcast. We're talking about iconic Australian myths and legends.
That's right.
We've uncovered that your animal there is that megafauna that's so Australian with the big giant wombat. And you know what? How lucky are we to sit down and have a chat with an iconic Australian
too
children's
kind.
author. I'm
Thank you, guys.
very blessed
What
to
a
have
pleasure.
you on the couch with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Yvette.
Thanks, Posh. Rob, how good's Posh?
Yvette is fantastic. I love talking with her. Every time I learn something new.
Do you know what? We didn't even get to talk about West Tigers. I know she's a massive rugby league fan. For those people who don't know, Yvette Demon, not only sports freak, but Demon with the old trivia. Do not get in her way in a trivia night. She knows a lot. A very smart lady.
You might say that she's well read and widely read.
Widely read. Funny that for
Yeah.
someone who's written 50 books, she's pretty well informed.
Yeah.
Look, how good was that? I mean, she's talking about that activating student voice and giving students a channel to be creative. I think that's so crucial. If we're talking about reinventing the classroom, making learning appropriate for the future generation so it's purposeful for students in life, there's nothing more important to talk about.
Yeah, and we're making children braver, I think, by doing that. Giving them a chance to put their thoughts out into the world really encourages them to be courageous.
Yeah, look, I I could have gone for another hour or two, but look, we have more episodes to listen to, more episodes to record.
Looking forward to it.
If you do want to go to the next episode of the Reinvent the Classroom podcast, don't forget you go to the same place where you can book a readiness assessment.
hp.com.au/RTC.
Well said. hp.com.au/RTC. Check out another episode of the Reinvent the Classroom podcast. And if you want Reinvent the Classroom to help your school and collect some data and look at impact and look at how you can improve your students' digital learning, you can book a readiness assessment at the same website.
Great.